Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I'll be talking about everything you need to know about the Washington Commanders 2024 offseason, including their draft picks, cap space, some coaches they could go after, and front office guys as well. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and that notification bell as well for some great Commanders content. I know a lot of people are going to be thinking, Pedro, it's way too early to talk about the offseason, and I can definitely see that, but a couple things. It is the bye week, so there's not a game to talk about. So I have to think about something to talk about, and the offseason is, a few weeks away. And then also, of course, this team isn't really great. And even if there was a football game, we're really focusing on the future and focusing on these young players. And I know a lot of people are very excited to just have this season over and Ron Rivera gone, and that's what I want as well. That is what I want as well. So we're going to go over cap space, draft picks, where I think our draft picks will end up, talking about GM candidates, head coaching candidates, everything you need to know about the Commanders off season. And if we look at the schedule, we got a few more weeks just to show you guys the exact date of when things are going to start to happen. We got a game next week against the Rams and the Jets and the 49ers, and then December 7th is the last day. So Ron Rivera will not be, hopefully, on December 8th, will not be the head coach of the Washington Commanders, and everyone is going to get fired. I mean, it's literally going to be everyone, and it'll start with Ron, and then Martin Mayhew, Marty Herney, that whole crew, and maybe the new GM will, keep a couple people around, but if they do, very minor people. It's not going to be, big names like Marty Herney or Martin Mayhew still. I just don't think it's going to happen. And then, coaches, I really don't think there's going to be a lot of, coaches back, including Eric Bieniemy and others as well. I just think they're going to want a whole clean slate, and it's going to be more of the GM is choosing. So unless he really loves Eric Bieniemy, I just don't see it happening. But let's talk about cap space. The Commanders are projected to have over $90 million in cap space this offseason. So they have a lot of money to throw around for free agents, and then also for some of their own guys that they want to re-sign or extend. But hey, this roster isn't great, so I don't know if they really want to be extending a lot of these guys on this team. But there are some free agents maybe they want to bring back, like Kendall Fuller. I would try bringing him back. And then there's other guys that, we'll see. Do you want to bring back Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel, Cam Curl, guys like that? They'll definitely think about it, and that'll be up to the new general manager. But the Commanders also have a bunch of picks because of the trades they made with Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and they're expected to finish pretty bad. They're going to be, I don't see another win on this schedule, honestly. Maybe the Jets. But the Rams, I don't see them winning that game. The Jets, again, I don't think we should win that game. Maybe we'll win that game. And then the 49ers and Cowboys, no chance unless they're resting starters. But if the Cowboys win against the Eagles, I think it's next week, they're going to be, I think, tied with the Eagles, depending on if the Eagles lose this week, which probably won't to the Seahawks, but still. So they might still have something to play for that last week. So yeah, we'll see what the draft pick. But right now, if the season ended today, the Commanders would have the 4th overall pick, and you see all these commercials for shoes, the 36th overall pick, which would be their second round pick, the 4th overall pick, which would be the Bears' second round pick, and they would have the 68th pick, 100th pick. So they would have 5 top 100 picks. I don't know why the Bears pick is 40th if ours is 36th, because I thought the Bears were right behind us, but whatever. Besides the point, we have a lot of draft capital. So with that number 4 overall pick, we can draft Olu Fashanu. We can draft, maybe Marvin Harrison. I don't think at 4, but let's say we move up to 3. Maybe you can take Marvin Harrison. I still would like to take an offensive lineman, but hey, people are talking about taking Marvin Harrison. So that's a possibility as well. Quarterback is also a possibility. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just laying out all the different possibilities. And there is an avenue for the Commanders, especially after the Patriots won yesterday. There is an avenue for the Commanders to get the number 2 overall pick. Right now, they are number 4, right ahead of Chicago. So they're right there. And if the Bears win this week, if the Bears lose this week, they are going to go ahead of the Commanders and get to the number 4th pick, just because in the tiebreaker for this is you want a lower strength of schedule, because that shows that you're worse. You played worse teams and still lost. So that's how the tiebreaker is. So the Commanders have a relatively high one, but if the Patriots win another game, they're tied right now with the Commanders. We have a chance to move up ahead of them, and the Cardinals also could get a win against the Bears. They match up against them as well. So there's a real possibility the Commanders finish in the top 3. At one point, you're like, okay, the best they could do is like 4, maybe 3, but now, a couple of teams like the Cardinals and Patriots are winning, which makes it possible for the Commanders to move up. And if they're at that number 2 overall pick, it's going to be tempting for them to take a quarterback. I'm just going to keep it real with you guys, especially, again, I am not advocating for it. We'll see this offseason what we got to do. We still got a few more games to see what Sam Howell does for the rest of the year. But there's going to be a new general manager. He's probably going to want to pick his own guy. And if you're at 5 or 6 and the first 2, quarterbacks are taken, okay, maybe you're not going to be tempted. But if you're at number 2 and you have your choice between Drake May, maybe Jaden Daniel, you have a lot of different guys you can go after. It might be a little bit tempting for the GM. And yeah, so we'll see what Sam Howell does the rest of the year, and we'll see how the general manager views Sam Howell. But the Commanders definitely have a lot of good draft capital, and it's going to put them in a very good position this offseason. But real quick, a word from today's sponsor.
BetUS, America's favorite sports book, where you can bet on everything anytime. Sportsbook, casino, horse racing, live betting, and more. We have the best bonuses in the industry. That's right, get a 125% sign-up bonus. And to celebrate our 30-year anniversary, we are giving up to 30 risk-free bets, a truck, Super Bowl tickets, and more. Don't miss out. Play smart. Join now. BetUS, where the game begins.
And make sure you guys check out BetUS. Link in the description. You get 125% first-time deposit match. You got so many different sports you can bet on. And this week, the Commanders don't play, but there's still a bunch of great NFL games that you can bet on. So make sure you guys check them out. And as usual, bet responsibly. All right, so we talked about the draft picks that the Commanders are going to have, and they're in a good spot. And things can change a lot. They could win a game or 2, and that's the most. I can't see them winning more than a game. The most I could see them winning is the Jets game, and after that, unless the Cowboys and 49ers rest starters, which I don't think they'll do, at least at this point, we're not winning more than one game. So the lowest I could see us drafting is probably 7 or 6, and that's if we win a game and then other things don't go our way, and we could draft as high as 2, which would be amazing. We could really draft a franchise-changing player with a new general manager and a new head coach. So there are some coordinators that the Commanders could target. I've talked about this a little bit. Last few weeks, I've made a couple videos on some candidates. Ben Johnson's the top candidate. I don't think we'll get him. I would be very surprised if we don't interview him, but he'll probably go with the Chargers or another team. But I think we're probably, because of, some of the, the draft capital we have and the cap space, we're somewhat attractive, place to be. But I think we're more attractive for a general manager than a head coach, because the general manager is the one who, he gets to use that cap space. He gets to use that draft capital. But head coaching, I still think we're somewhat attractive destination for sure. But Ben Johnson, it would be tough to get him. But if we could somehow get him, I would love that. And if we got Ben Johnson, that probably means Sam Howell's still here. I don't know. He could also want to draft Drake May, but he does have that connection with UNC and Sam Howell, and he definitely likes him. So something interesting for sure. You got Brian Johnson. Eagles fans don't really like him. I think he'll probably stick another year in Philly as the OC before he really gets to before he gets a head coaching job. And I'm not completely sure. If you guys can comment down below if he calls the plays or not, because I think he does, but I'm not 100%. You got Mike McDonald and Todd Monken, who are Mike is the Ravens defensive coordinator, and Todd Monken is the Ravens offensive coordinator. The Ravens have been amazing this year. Probably wouldn't want to go to for Todd again. I don't really want an old coach to be our coach, especially. I don't know. I want a young, fresh guy, someone that's new, hasn't really coached before besides offensive coordinator. And it's just, I don't know, that hasn't really coached before. So Todd Monken would just not be my preferred choice. And Dan Quinn, I honestly would prefer Dan Quinn over Todd Monken. Still prefers guys like Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick over Dan Quinn. But Dan Quinn, out of like all the kind of oldish guys and non-offensive guys, I like Dan Quinn. He's done he completely turned around that Cowboys defense that everyone was talking about, one of the worst, historically worst defenses ever, and he turns them around and has developed some guys really well, like Trayvon Diggs, Dron Bland, Micah Parsons, and just he's coaching them up really well. So he's a guy that you have to watch out for. But I think, honestly, if the Cowboys don't do well in the playoffs, maybe they lose first round, maybe even second round, they could potentially fire Mike McCarthy and just promote Dan Quinn. And then Bobby Slowick's a guy I really like, was in Washington in 2013 in some offensive role, I believe. But it was very, maybe quality assistant or something very minor. But with all those guys, like Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, and I'm missing someone else, but just a great offensive staff there. But Bobby Slowick's done a really good job with the Texans and CJ Stroud. He's developed some, good quarterbacks in the past as well. So I would really be interested in Bobby Slowick. If we can't get Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick is probably my number one option. He's also pretty young as well and an offensive mind. Going into general managers, there's a bunch of different guys he could go after. Shout out to Tan Todd, podcast. He says his number one target is Alec Hollaby. He's been assistant GM for the Eagles, 16 years with the Eagles, 5 years as vice president of football operations. He's got a very good background in analytics, Harvard grad, 36 years old, and looks like Spider-Man. And hey, the Eagles have been doing amazing. I mean, they've been really good for a while now, for the last 20-ish years, but especially the last 4-ish years, 5 years, I've absolutely loved how they've run their team. Everything about it, how aggressive they are, and I just really would like him to be the general manager or the president. Honestly, we could hire him as a president, but yeah, he would be someone I would definitely consider. Adam Peters from the 49ers is another guy to watch out for. He's been highly sought after, but I think he's waiting for the right opportunity, so maybe that's Washington. And then Bengals senior personnel exec Trey Brown. He's got experience in New England and Philly, played football, has great analytics background, from Philly, and he's, built some organizations from scratch in the AAF and XFL, and, did a really good job with the Bengals as well. So he's another guy to watch out for. The Chiefs assistant GM, I forgot his name. He's another guy to watch out for. There's a lot of different good general managers they could go after. Again, I don't want someone old that's done a while, like who's been a general manager before, like Martin Mayhew seems like a good guy and everything, but I never really loved the hire, again, just because he was a general manager before and wasn't a great one. And I just don't want a guy that's already done it and you have a track record of not being great, or even if it's an okay track record, if they're available, it's for a reason. So unless you somehow get an elite guy because of money, that's like the only way. And right here, this is back to the draft pick. Wait for the Commanders to get the number 2 overall pick. Cardinals beat the Bears week 16. Bears win against the Falcons. And I talked about this. The Bears have a really solid shot of winning 1 or 2 more games. They do play the Cardinals. They play the Falcons. They play the Packers, who obviously are a solid team, but it's a team they could beat. And they play, I think, the Lions and then the Falcons. So, they definitely will win probably 1 more game, but it would be huge if the Cardinals beat the Bears in week 16, because then we would pass the Cardinals as long as we, lose out. And the Pats winning 1 more game would help out as well. But that's it for today's video. Everything you need to know about the Washington Commanders 2024 offseason. And it can be an exciting one. And this is really the first step of the new era after Dan Snyder. Peace, guys.